This story is about my experience in a program called Rites of Passage, also known as ROP. ROP was a program designed for youthful offenders who were deemed as escape risk and rebels. Some of us were runaways from group homes, program failures, car thieves, and budding gang members prone to violence. ROP was known to be the last stop before the dreaded California Youth Authority. Located deep in the high deserts of western Nevada, the harsh desert conditions and remoteness of the program were by design and ideal for the urban California youth who were sent there. The program was structured in 3 stages. First, the desert. The desert was the first stage of the program and physically and mentally the hardest. Located 15 miles from any paved roads, isolated from civilization, the harsh elements of the desert were unforgiving and stripped you of any sense of ease or self-bravado. Next was the Athletic Training Center, also known as the ATC. The ATC was located in Urrington, Nevada, and focused more on education and sports. Physical fitness was still a priority, and the program was allowed to compete in local high school sports in the surrounding areas. The third and final stage was called the Varsity House. These were group home settings that were scattered throughout California. When you graduated from the Athletic Training Center, you were placed at a varsity house closest to the part of California you were committed from. In theory, you could complete the program and be home in 9 months. Unfortunately for many of us, our stay didn't go as planned. I never seen a varsity house, and besides a short stint at the Athletic Training Center, I spent the bulk of my time in the desert. I arrived January 11th, 1991. It was cold, and the desert sand froze into rippled concrete. Located on the outskirts of Schurz, Nevada, the land belonged to the Walker River Paiute tribe. ROP was a for-profit company that paid the tribe $7,000 a month, which in today's economy would be equivalent to roughly $15,000. Because the land belonged to the tribe, the state had no licensing authority nor oversight. The 110 youth were divided into 3 camps. The camps were separated and consisted of 2 Quonset huts and a latrine. The camps were Central Camp, American Camp, and National Camp. Then there was Specials. Specials was a camp for those who were violent, refused to listen, or were just too physically weak to meet the grueling demands of the program. The so-called coaches at Specials were sadistic. They'd put us through brutal workouts that would last for hours, or have us sit on wooden platforms all day and late into the night. ROP was highly structured and consisted of 3-mile runs, calisthenics, circuit training, and competitive sports. All workouts had to be done in formation. Runs were timed under the watchful eyes of staff, who we called coaches. Most were washed-up college athletes and ex-military. Some were roided-out bodybuilders. One coach was an ex-con who served 15 years in Nevada's Department of Corrections. I remember catching him looking at us weird as we'd be drying off after our showers. I later recognized that look to be the way a man would look at a woman. The coach's shifts were 7 days on and 7 days off. I don't know what screening procedures were in place, but it seemed like if you had a pulse, you were hired. Other than Specials Camp, coaches used other means of control and discipline. They could literally take your day. Your days were earned individually. They were tracked on a big white board above the urinal in the latrine. Each day you earned would be added at the end of your last name on the board. It took 100 days to get out of the desert. If you committed a rule infraction, the coaches were at liberty to take your day. That day that you busted your back for would not be documented on the board the next day. Talking back to a coach, day loss. Disrespecting a coach, day loss. Spitting without permission, day loss. If you committed a big enough rule infraction, it was a percentage of your days that can be taken. There was another method the coaches used to exert their authority and to gain control of a situation. It was called getting restrained. If If you got aggressive or violent, refused to work out, or the coaches simply wanted to make an example out of you, you were a candidate to get restrained. Restraints went like this. The coach would give you 10 seconds to comply with whatever demands he was asking of you. When the 10 seconds were up, one coach would quickly maneuver behind you and put you in a full Nelson, while the other coach secured your legs together and simultaneously turn you face down and slam you into the ground. That in turn would knock the wind straight out of you, and then they would lay on top of you until you, quote-unquote, calmed down. In some cases, this was necessary, but in other instances, it was used as an intimidation factor and to communicate who was in charge in the desert. It was February 1992. The desert was freezing, and I had been there for over a year with no end in sight. Attempted escapes, staff assaults, numerous day losses, and trips to specials were routine. I was stuck in the middle of the desert, and I was looking for a way out. On the 4th of that same month, after a 3-mile run, I remember a helicopter landing at an adjacent camp. This had never happened before. All of us youth began asking, why was there a helicopter landing out here? We were told in no uncertain terms to shut up and mind our business. From the reactions of the coaches, we knew it was something serious. Before long, we began hearing bits and pieces of what was going on. A youth, who we later found out to be Paul Choi, a commitment from San Francisco County, had to be medevaced to a hospital after he was found not breathing while being restrained. We later found out that Paul Choi was on life support, and there was going to be a heavy level of scrutiny into the program in the way the coaches interacted with the youth. Up until that point, we all felt unheard and unseen, and basically forgotten by our communities. A lot of us began speaking amongst ourselves, having clandestine meetings, and actually talking about how we can use this scrutiny into the program to shed some light on the abusive treatment we felt we were receiving from the staff. Maybe this was an opportunity for us to get out of this program and get closer to our families. So we decided to shed as much negative attention on this program while we had the spotlight. Attempted escapes, riots, staff assaults were all the norm. In retrospect, it really did us no justice in acting out this way, but at the time, it made perfect sense. All the youth from San Francisco County got pulled out of the program and sent back to their county. Not only did that strengthen our resolve, but confirmed in our own minds that we were doing the right thing, and maybe we too would be pulled out of the program and sent back closer to our families. It was during this time when the incident took place. I was sitting in the chow hall, the victim of another day loss by a coach that didn't care for me, and he wasn't too popular on my list either. I don't know what made me think of it, but sitting right in front of me was the king-size bottle of Tabasco sauce. And I said to myself, not today, coach. Not today. Today you're going to feel the pent-up wrath and frustration that we all were feeling out there, and I decided to take the Tabasco sauce bottle and hide it in my sweats to be used later on this coach who just took my day. So we go to the gym after the chow hall. As we entered the gym, I remember getting out of line and with my left hand grabbing his shoulder and spinning him around. And with all my might, I swung that Tabasco bottle as hard as I could. It came crashing down on the side of his face. Blood and Tabasco were everywhere, splattered on both of our faces, blinding us. He had me by my collar, and I had him by his. And the next thing I remember is the coach screaming at me, "You scum! You scum! You scum!" Just repeating it over and over as he swung blindly, hitting me multiple times in my face, as I was swinging blindly with the shattered piece of Tabasco bottle I still had. We were locking horns like two bucks during mating season until the coaches ran over and broke us up. Breathing heavily and both soaked in blood and Tabasco, we were separated. The coach went to the hospital to get stitched up, and the scum went back to specials. I was then terminated from the program courtesy of a new charge. The Rite of Passage program is still functioning and has totally rebranded itself. This episode is dedicated to Paul Choi. His cause of death was asphyxiation by restraint. This has been The Coach and the Scum.